it's Amy, and in today's video we're going to talk about trauma and the effects it has on a person. Trauma is a distressing experience, but in order to experience trauma, you don't have to be the one directly experiencing the event. A person can experience trauma by either just hearing about it or seeing it, because it all has to do with the emotional pain that comes with the experience of the event. I do want to say that trauma doesn't have to ruin your life, and it is possible to get through a traumatic experience and continue to have healthy relationships and a healthy life. But it is important to get help and really go through treatment to help you let go of the traumatic experience. The most common diagnosis for a traumatic experience or trauma is PTSD. That's usually the symptom we give as therapists to our clients when we see that a traumatic event is really affecting a person's life. Children who experience trauma have brains that are wired differently from children who don't. The reason for this is because when a person experiences stress or trauma, the brain's response of fight or flight is activated through a release of a chemical called cortisol. This fight or flight response is helpful during emergencies, but when there is continuing or chronic stress, the child starts developing cortisol in an increased level, which causes damage to the brain because cortisol in high amounts can become toxic. When there is too much cortisol in the brain, there is a symptom that's exhibited by children that's called hyperarousal. What this means is that the child is in an anxiety state for long periods of times or on a daily basis. So they may experience a lot of stress, irritability, high blood pressure, higher rates of heart, or a higher temperature. Another symptom that's exhibited with too much stress or with too much cortisol is the symptom of disassociation. And this happens usually in relationships, and it follows kids all the way through adulthood. And it's exhibited usually by a way of handling stress in freezing or maybe shutting down, and this is the way they protect themselves in stressful situations, because they've never been able to, in a healthy manner, be able to get through hard times. So anytime they experience stress or any type of fear, they're usually going to either shut down or they're going to probably freeze, because they don't know how to handle too much of this cortisol that comes up when they are in a traumatic experience. Because a child is so vulnerable and their brain has not been fully developed, it is more likely for a child to develop PTSD than an adult. The reason for this is because they are not only all fully developed in their brain, but also because they're so little. Usually they rely on adults for protection, and since they don't have that, they feel helpless, and usually this helpless feeling is followed through until their adulthood, which is not a healthy way of living, because it does affect your ability to connect and develop healthy relationships. Many times when a child experiences a traumatic experience, they won't tell. They might not tell because they feel it's their fault, they feel ashamed, they feel that if they would have done something different, they could have avoided it, or because they have been threatened. A lot of the time they could be threatened by their perpetrator. Some behaviors that you may see is that they're maladaptive behaviors, like sexualized behaviors at an age that's way too young, bullying, or violence. These are some behaviors that could give you an idea that there is something going on with the child, that they're having trouble to communicate to others. For teenagers, their brain is also being developed, but there's a different part of their brain that's being developed, and that's the cortex. The cortex allows a person to make goal-oriented decisions, to be able to prioritize their decisions as well. So it's on the decision-making part of the brain, but because it's not fully developed, teens will start making decisions or tend to make decisions emotionally. This is why a lot of the times teens are really moody. They tend to be irritable. They easily get upset. They're just emotional because that part of their brain that allows them to make logical decisions hasn't fully been developed. So you're going to be seeing a lot of emotional responses to their experiences. So with that being said, because their decisions or their emotions are so heightened, they're more likely to experience stress if they go through a traumatic event. So because they're more likely to experience stress, they're more likely to fall into bad choices such as drugs, alcohol, or any type of promiscuity, because they feel emotionally connected that way. Another big thing that I do want to say with teens is that their body is also going through puberty, so their body's a lot more developed than their brain is, so they're using their body in an emotional way rather than logically when they make their decisions. So always remember that if a teen experiences trauma, they will react to it in the way their brain is developed. And since it's not fully developed, they might be making some bad choices to let people know what has happened to them. So lastly, I want to talk about adults, which is basically when your brain is fully developed, and here you still have side effects. Obviously, if you experience the trauma back in childhood, those difficulties that you had then or the way it's affecting you then will follow you all the way through, but you will continue to have difficulty attaching or developing secure and safe relationships with other people. Your relationships won't be that healthy if you don't seek treatment, and you'll also be more likely to develop more emotional and mental disorders and many different diseases. And then lastly, the likelihood of developing other mental disorders, like I said, that go along with PTSD, such as anxiety, depression, may also be attached to the PTSD diagnosis, because as an adult you tend to change who you are as a person when you experience the trauma, so it does affect you, and you'd start to train your brain to react to stress in a different way. In all these situations, the cortisol levels are heightened, so it's not healthy if it's something that's continuous or if you don't treat it properly. So my advice to you, I do want to say that if you have gone through any trauma, to please get help, because there is a way to get through this and to be able to develop healthy relationships in your life. Great treatments that are out there for trauma is trauma focused therapy and TFCBT for children. This allows you to tell your story in a way that is safe and in a way that you can understand it. You'll be able to really go through your entire experience, but in a way that won't be so traumatic to you and will allow you to understand and really let go of that trauma. Anyone who has gone through a traumatic experience, it will be difficult to really let go of that. But if you really do the work in therapy to get through your traumatic experience, you really will be able to continue to have safe and healthy relationships, like I said before, because traumatic experiences should not be kept secret. They should be let go from a person's experience, from a person's mind. It's never going to be your fault. Traumatic experiences happen, but it's important to really seek the help needed to be able to get through it and really continue on to making to having a healthy life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it might have been a little heavy, but I think it's important to really understand the effects that a traumatic experience could have in a person, and the reason why we should go and get help if we have experienced any traumatic event. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.